You're about to hear something shocking. Something that has Hollywood buzzing, social media exploding, and royal watchers glued to every headline. Imagine this. The American Cinematheque Awards 2025, one of the glitziest nights in Hollywood, filled with stars, flashing cameras, and the scent of champagne in the air. Celebrities are arriving in sleek gowns, tailored tuxedos, and designer heels. The energy is electric, almost palpable. Everyone expects glamour, smiles, and polite applause. But in the middle of this picture-perfect evening, a moment erupts that no one could have predicted. Bradley Cooper, one of Hollywood's most respected actors, known for his charm and calm demeanor, stands up in anger. And in front of the entire room, he points directly at Meghan Markle and tells her to get up and leave. Just like that. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. It's not just a story about a celebrity outburst. This moment, frozen in time on red carpet footage, carries layers of tension, history, and consequences that reach far beyond Hollywood's velvet ropes. The question on everyone's mind is simple yet explosive. Why? Why would Bradley Cooper, calm, collected, and usually diplomatic, publicly humiliate someone of Meghan Markle's stature? Was it personal? Professional? Or something far more complicated, entangled in Hollywood politics and royal intrigue? Let's rewind a bit to understand the gravity of this event. The American Cinematheque Awards, held annually in Los Angeles, isn't just another gala. It's a night where Hollywood's biggest stars are celebrated, and the atmosphere is charged with prestige, ambition, and sometimes rivalry. It's the kind of event where every glance, every gesture, is scrutinized. And for Meghan Markle, the evening was meant to be a moment to shine, to bridge her Hollywood career with her royal background, and to cement her image as a global icon. She arrived in a stunning designer gown, exuding confidence, smiling for the cameras, every step calculated to perfection. Yet, behind the sparkling facade, tensions were simmering. Bradley Cooper's reaction didn't come from nowhere. There are whispers, leaked accounts, and insider stories that hint at a complicated history between these two public figures. Some claim there had been previous encounters at other high-profile events, moments of awkward tension, subtle slights that, in the high-pressure world of Hollywood, are never forgotten. But was this the tipping point? Or was it the culmination of weeks, maybe months, of behind-the-scenes friction that the cameras never captured? The audience watching the red carpet unfold would have seen a picture-perfect Meghan, poised, regal, and completely composed. But if you look closely at the footage, you can see it. Just before the incident, the subtle shifts in body language, the tightening of jaws, the flicker of tension in her eyes. And then, Bradley Cooper makes his move. It starts with a pointed gesture, a harsh word that slices through the ambient noise of cameras and chatter, and before anyone can fully process it, Meghan is confronted with a command that would make anyone freeze in shock. Get up. Leave. It's a moment so raw, so unfiltered, that it has ignited speculation across every platform imaginable. Twitter exploded within seconds, hashtags trending, fan accounts dissecting every frame. TikTok videos of the moment have already amassed millions of views. Even journalists, who have covered hundreds of celebrity events, are calling it unprecedented. And yet, there's more beneath the surface. Much more. What was caught on the red carpet is only the tip of the iceberg. Behind the velvet ropes, in private corners and backstage rooms, conversations occurred that have never been revealed until now. But why does this story matter to you? Beyond the celebrity scandal, beyond the viral videos and tabloid headlines, this event is a study in public perception, power, and the collision of two very different worlds. Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex turned Hollywood figure, operates in a space where media narratives can make or break her. Bradley Cooper, a man whose reputation for professionalism and charm precedes him, does not publicly lose his composure lightly. Their clash, therefore, is more than a moment. It's a clash of identities, ambitions, and stakes that the public rarely sees so unfiltered. And here's the part that really gets interesting. Footage and reports suggest that this wasn't just a spontaneous reaction. Some insiders hint at conversations that took place earlier that day, subtle provocations, and perhaps even a calculated move by Meghan's team to command attention. Could it be that Bradley's response was fueled by more than anger? Was it a reaction to a carefully orchestrated plan? Or was it something completely personal, a snap of frustration that caught everyone off guard? Consider the setting, the cameras rolling, the eyes of the world watching, and the stakes higher than at any ordinary celebrity event. Every step Meghan took was scrutinized, every glance, every smile analyzed. And when Bradley Cooper pointed and issued that command, the silence that followed was deafening. The audience's collective gasp seemed to ripple through the air like a shockwave. The room that moments before had been alive with polite applause and casual chatter froze in an instant. Staffers, security, and other attendees were caught between intervention and stunned inaction. It was a tableau of tension, as real and visceral as anything scripted for a film. This incident has implications that extend beyond Hollywood gossip. It touches on Meghan Markle's ongoing struggle to define her identity in the public eye, balancing royal legacy with Hollywood persona, and navigating the expectations of both worlds simultaneously. For Bradley Cooper, it tests the boundaries of public decorum, highlighting a moment when even a celebrated actor reaches the limits of tolerance. The collision of these two forces is nothing short of explosive. And here's the kicker. While the red carpet moment is what everyone saw, it's only a fragment of the story. Behind the scenes, tensions were simmering. Interviews, whispers, leaked communications that suggest this incident may have been building for months. Could it be that what happened in front of the cameras was just the climax of a much longer drama? Some insiders even suggest that the fallout could alter careers, shift Hollywood alliances, and redefine Meghan's narrative in ways the public cannot yet grasp. Now, let me ask you directly. What would you do if confronted in front of hundreds of people, flashing cameras, and millions of eyes online? Would you freeze, fight back, or comply? And what happens when the person confronting you is someone like Bradley Cooper, whose calm exterior rarely cracks, and whose anger is unexpected, explosive, and commanding? In this video, we're going to break down every single detail. The red carpet moment, the tense exchanges backstage, the reactions of other celebrities, the leaked footage, and the implications for Meghan Markle's public image. We'll explore Bradley Cooper's perspective, what insiders are saying, and why this incident has ignited such a firestorm of speculation. You'll get the full picture of what led to the moment, what happened during it, and what it means for the Hollywood and royal worlds alike. But before we get to all the shocking reveals, there's one final tease. According to sources who were there, something happened just moments before Bradley's public outburst. Something that no camera caught. Something that even the most meticulous red carpet photographers missed. Imagine walking into one of Hollywood's most prestigious award nights. The red carpet stretches endlessly, lined with velvet ropes, flashing cameras, and screaming fans trying to catch a glimpse of their favorite stars. The American Cinematheque Awards 2025 promised glamour, glitz, and unforgettable moments. But no one expected the kind of spectacle that would shock everyone in attendance. From the moment the doors opened, the air was electric. Celebrities floated down the red carpet, posing with confidence, laughter, and practiced smiles, while photographers jockeyed for position, shouting names over the din of camera clicks. Every detail was meticulously planned. The perfect lighting, the perfectly tailored dresses and suits, the meticulous hair and makeup. For many, this night was a career highlight, a moment to shine under the bright eyes of the world. But as the evening unfolded, tension began to ripple beneath the surface. A tension that no one could have predicted would explode in such a public, dramatic confrontation. Among the stars was Bradley Cooper, a man known for his charm, professionalism, and steady temperament. He was arriving with his usual quiet confidence, a warm smile for fans, and an air of calm authority. People recognized him not just for his films, but for his ability to navigate the Hollywood spotlight with poise. Yet, even as he posed for photos and waved to the crowd, there was a subtle tension in his eyes, a flicker of awareness, as if he sensed that the night held more than just ceremonial applause. Then came Meghan Markle. As she approached the red carpet, cameras shifted their focus, capturing every detail. The subtle sway of her gown, the glint of her jewelry, the calm composure she exuded despite the swarm of paparazzi surrounding her. Meghan's presence always commanded attention, a mix of royal grace and Hollywood allure that made her a magnet for headlines. But as she advanced toward the cameras, whispers began circulating among attendees. Some sensed an undercurrent of tension, a silent electricity in the air. Something was about to happen. The atmosphere, previously charged with excitement, began to thrum with unease. Onlookers caught glimpses of sharp glances exchanged between Bradley and Meghan, small, almost imperceptible moments that hinted at a history, a friction, or a disagreement lurking beneath the polite veneer of the red carpet. It was in these fleeting seconds, these tiny gestures, that the stage was set for the explosive confrontation to come. Bradley's body language shifted subtly. His shoulders squared, his jaw tightened, and his eyes locked onto Meghan in a way that seemed unusual for a man known for restraint. Meghan, for her part, moved forward with her characteristic poise, a serene smile that masked any hint of awareness of the storm brewing. Observers could sense the tension, even if they didn't fully understand it yet. Something was about to break. And then it happened. Bradley Cooper, in a moment that would be captured on every camera and replayed endlessly online, pointed directly at Meghan Markle. The command was sharp, clear, and public. Get up. Leave. In that instant, the room froze. Flashes erupted like gunfire as photographers captured the surreal moment, while attendees gasped and whispered among themselves. The suddenness of the act, combined with the intensity of Bradley's gaze, created a shockwave that reverberated throughout the entire event. It was a scene that would soon dominate social media, trending hashtags and viral clips spreading across platforms within minutes. Yet, despite the public spectacle, there was so much more happening behind the cameras. Staffers, security, and fellow celebrities were caught between reacting to the sudden tension and maintaining the decorum of the event. The collective silence was almost deafening, a stark contrast to the controlled chaos of the red carpet moments before. To understand why this moment was so explosive, we have to consider the context. The American Cinematheque Awards aren't just about celebrating cinematic achievements. They're a microcosm of Hollywood's hierarchy, politics, and personal ambitions. Every interaction, every glance, every whispered word can carry weight. In this environment, even a small friction can escalate into something far larger. And for Meghan Markle and Bradley Cooper, it seems that the undercurrents of tension had been building for months, if not years. As cameras continued to flash, Meghan's reaction was subtle but telling. She paused, her composure flickering for just a fraction of a second, a micro-expression of shock, disbelief, and perhaps even irritation. Observers noted the slight tightening around her eyes and lips, gestures that indicated her awareness of the gravity of the situation. It was a human moment amidst the spectacle, a glimpse of vulnerability in a woman accustomed to controlling her public image. Meanwhile, Bradley's posture remained firm, unwavering. His finger remained pointed, his voice carried authority, and the intensity of his stare communicated that this was not a moment of casual anger. It was deliberate, a statement that would resonate far beyond the walls of the awards venue. It was as if he was drawing a line, marking boundaries in a world where public personas often blur the lines between personal and professional. Observers would later debate the motivations behind Bradley's actions. Was it frustration with Meghan herself, a reaction to a perceived slight, or something more strategic? Some insiders suggest that the moment was the culmination of backstage tensions, conversations that escalated, and pressures that had been mounting in secret. Others argue that it was a spontaneous response, a flash of human emotion triggered by the unique dynamics of the evening. Regardless of the reasons, the impact was immediate and undeniable. The moment dominated conversations throughout the night, from the red carpet to backstage areas and beyond into social media channels. Clips of the confrontation circulated widely, accompanied by commentary ranging from shocked disbelief to enthusiastic speculation. For many, the incident represented a rare glimpse into the unfiltered realities of celebrity interactions, where even the most composed figures can reach their breaking points under intense scrutiny. But what makes this story truly compelling isn't just the public confrontation, it's what happened before and after. Sources reveal that private moments, whispers, and glances in corridors just moments before the red carpet moment may have set the stage for the outburst. Conversations that were never captured by cameras, exchanges between entourages, and perhaps even a miscommunication could have contributed to the tension reaching a boiling point. These behind-the-scenes details hint at a narrative far richer and more complicated than the public witnessed in a few seconds of red carpet footage. And that's where the story begins to unfold in full. The red carpet moment is only the surface, a spark that ignites a chain reaction involving Hollywood politics, royal dynamics, and public perception. Over the course of this video, we'll peel back each layer, examining not only what happened on that stage, but also the unseen forces, historical tensions, and personal stakes that made this confrontation inevitable. So, what exactly led Bradley Cooper to reach this breaking point? Why did Meghan Markle, a woman skilled in public appearances and media strategy, find herself at the center of such a dramatic spectacle? And what are the implications for their careers, reputations, and personal lives? These questions will guide our exploration as we delve into the events that night, the history behind the moment, and the fallout that continues to ripple through Hollywood and beyond. But before we dive into the detailed chapters of this story, consider this. According to insiders, something occurred in the moments immediately preceding Bradley's public outburst. A whisper, a glance, a subtle interaction that no camera caught. It's a private spark that lit the fire and set the stage for one of the most talked-about moments in Hollywood history. The moment at the American Cinematheque Awards didn't happen in a vacuum. To truly understand why Bradley Cooper pointed at Meghan Markle and told her to leave, we need to go back, way back, and examine the history between these two figures. It's a story laced with subtle tensions, unspoken rivalries, and Hollywood moments that, at the time, seemed inconsequential but now take on an entirely new significance. It all started years ago, long before Meghan became a household name in Hollywood. Bradley Cooper, already a celebrated actor, director, and producer, had carved out a reputation as someone who commanded respect in both creative and social spheres. He wasn't just a leading man. He was the type of celebrity whose professional credibility often eclipsed his fame. Directors, co-stars, and industry insiders admired him for his focus, his intensity, and his calm under pressure. When you saw Bradley Cooper in a room, it was impossible not to sense his presence, not just as an actor, but as a force of influence. Meghan Markle, on the other hand, was still navigating her rise to stardom. Known primarily for her role on Suits, she had charisma, poise, and a public persona that radiated charm and approachability. But the transition from television actress to high-profile global figure was not without its pitfalls. She learned early that Hollywood operates on layers of unspoken rules: who you sit with, who you speak to, how you present yourself, and most importantly, how you navigate the subtle power dynamics that govern every interaction. The first notable encounter between Bradley and Meghan reportedly occurred at a Hollywood gala several years ago. According to sources who attended, the two exchanged polite greetings, smiles, and small talk. But beneath the surface, the meeting was charged with tension. Bradley, known for his exacting standards and selective circle, was reportedly unimpressed by Meghan's overt attempts at charm. Meanwhile, Meghan, aware of Bradley's influence, is said to have tried to assert herself socially, subtly signaling her ambition to be part of Hollywood's inner circle. Observers at the time dismissed it as typical networking behavior, but in hindsight, these early sparks seemed far more significant. Over time, their paths continued to cross at high-profile events. The Met Gala, various charity dinners, and award ceremonies all provided opportunities for subtle exchanges that, at the time, seemed innocuous. There were whispers of brief confrontations, Bradley's sharp gaze meeting Meghan's poised smile, a terse comment exchanged over hors d'oeuvres, or a hallway conversation where tones escalated just enough to leave lingering tension. None of it ever made headlines, but insiders suggest that each encounter left an impression, layering frustration and unspoken resentment over time. Some of these interactions were professional in nature. Bradley, for example, has been deeply involved in film production and directing, with a focus on collaborative integrity. He reportedly observed instances where Meghan's public persona, polished, deliberate, and media-savvy, clashed with what he considered authentic artistic intention. These subtle judgments, while never voiced publicly, are said to have contributed to a simmering tension. Could it be that Bradley saw Meghan as someone skilled at navigating public perception, but less grounded in the craft he revered? At the same time, Meghan's rise in Hollywood coincided with a growing media fascination with her personal life, particularly after her engagement to Prince Harry. Suddenly, her every move was under intense scrutiny, not just by paparazzi, but by industry peers and social insiders. This magnified every minor interaction with Bradley Cooper, turning what would have been trivial social friction into a narrative of rivalry in the public eye. The subtle dynamics of respect, jealousy, and image management, which are already volatile in Hollywood, became even more charged. A few insiders go further, suggesting that there may have been incidents backstage at previous events that contributed directly to the tension. One unnamed source claimed that during a press event for a charity gala, Meghan allegedly made a comment perceived as dismissive toward Bradley's work, a passing remark, likely harmless to an outsider, but interpreted as a slight by someone who is famously meticulous about professional respect. Bradley, ever attentive to nuances, reportedly did not let it go unnoticed. These small moments, when stacked together over time, created a psychological landscape ripe for a public confrontation. But the tension wasn't one-sided. Meghan Markle is a strategist. Every interaction, every appearance, every handshake is calculated to maintain her image as poised, controlled, and socially adept. Insiders suggest that she may have been testing boundaries, gauging reactions, and subtly asserting influence over social hierarchies at events where she intersected with Hollywood heavyweights like Bradley Cooper. In a world where perception often equals power, these microactions could be just as impactful as overt gestures. Interestingly, there's also evidence that mutual acquaintances had warned both parties about potential clashes. Agents, PR teams, and mutual friends supposedly whispered advice: be careful around him, or don't provoke her. These warnings, however, only highlight the inevitability of the moment at the American Cinematheque Awards. It wasn't a single incident that led to the outburst. It was a culmination of years of layered interactions, subtle provocations, and unspoken rivalries. Even social media played a role in magnifying the tension. In the months leading up to the 2025 awards, both Meghan and Bradley were frequently in the public eye, and every post, every comment, every public engagement was dissected for signs of personality clash or implied commentary. Observers noted coincidences. Meghan posting about authenticity while Bradley was being praised for his genuine artistry, and spun them into narratives of tension, whether or not there was any deliberate messaging involved. Public perception, in this case, became a catalyst for private friction. And yet, despite all these undercurrents, there were also moments of cordiality. Reports indicate that at certain events, they shared polite exchanges, smiled for cameras, and maintained outward composure. These moments of apparent civility add a layer of complexity to the story. If they were able to maintain professionalism in public before, why did the American Cinematheque Awards become the breaking point? What changed in that moment that made the confrontation inevitable? The answer, insiders suggest, lies in a combination of high stakes, heightened emotions, and the unique pressures of the red carpet. It wasn't just another gala. It was a convergence of personal history, public scrutiny, and the strategic calculations that both Bradley and Meghan constantly navigate. The tension that had been simmering under the surface for years reached its tipping point, catalyzed by the glare of cameras and the charged energy of a room filled with Hollywood's elite. So when Bradley Cooper pointed at Meghan Markle and told her to leave, it wasn't merely a reaction to her presence. It was the eruption of a long-standing history of subtle slights, professional judgments, personal expectations, and carefully managed appearances. It was the collision of two very different approaches to fame, respect, and influence. And in that collision, the entire room, and soon, the world, was forced to bear witness. But here's the kicker. While the red carpet moment is the most visible, insiders claim that something even more consequential occurred just moments before the confrontation. Something that could explain why the tension escalated so dramatically. A brief, private exchange, unnoticed by cameras, may have triggered the eruption in a way that was unavoidable. And what happened next would not only shock the guests at the event, but ignite speculation across Hollywood and beyond. It started with a whisper, a ripple in the crowd, the faint sound of camera shutters clicking in rapid succession. The American Cinematheque Awards 2025 were in full swing, the red carpet alive with a flurry of glittering gowns and tailored tuxedos. The air smelled faintly of perfume, polished leather, and freshly waxed floors. But among the gleaming spectacle, there was an undercurrent, a tension invisible to most, but palpable to those paying attention. And then she arrived, Meghan Markle. From the very first step onto the red carpet, everything shifted. Cameras pivoted, lenses zoomed in, and the crowd collectively held its breath. She moved with the poise of someone trained in public performance. But there was more to it, an energy, a subtle aura of authority that made her impossible to ignore. Every eye followed her, not merely because she was a celebrity, but because she carried herself with a presence that demanded attention. She was royalty in a room of stars, an unexpected juxtaposition that created an almost electric atmosphere. Yet, beneath the polished exterior, there were the faintest cracks. Meghan's smile, perfect and poised for the cameras, carried a hint of calculation. She was aware of Bradley Cooper, of course. A few steps into the red carpet, their eyes met briefly, a flash of recognition, subtle but telling. Those who know body language could detect the micro-signals, a brief lift of an eyebrow, a flicker of tension in the jaw, a minuscule tightening of the shoulders. It was almost imperceptible, but in the high-pressure world of celebrity interaction, these subtleties are as loud as shouts. Bradley Cooper was already waiting, or, more accurately, observing. Sources suggest that he had positioned himself strategically, aware that Meghan would eventually enter his line of sight. His demeanor, calm to an outsider, carried a quiet intensity. The subtle tension in his gaze, the slight narrowing of his eyes, betrayed a preoccupation that many would have missed if not scrutinizing the moment frame by frame. This wasn't casual curiosity. Something was brewing, and it had been brewing for years. As Meghan approached, the cameras clicked at a furious pace, capturing the glittering details, the intricate pattern of her gown, the shine of her earrings, the confident sway of her posture. Yet, amid the glamour, the whispers began circulating in the press pen and VIP areas. Some journalists noted the palpable tension, pointing out that Meghan's steps seemed deliberately timed, her interactions unusually deliberate. They sensed a collision was imminent, a confrontation waiting for the spark that would ignite it. The crowd, too, began to sense something. Fans and attendees whispered, speculating on the unusual energy between the two stars. "Did you see the way they looked at each other?" someone murmured. Another replied, "It's like they've had history, something unresolved." It was in these moments, before any words were exchanged, that the foundation for the explosive incident was being laid. And then came the micro-interactions that would later be dissected endlessly in the media. Meghan's team reportedly positioned her carefully, controlling the angles, anticipating camera focus, and managing every handshake and smile. Bradley, on the other hand, maintained a careful distance but remained sharply attentive. There were reports of a brief brush of hands near the entrance, a fleeting exchange of words overheard by security staff, and a subtle but deliberate redirection of Meghan's path by an aide that Bradley noticed immediately. These were not dramatic events in isolation, but in the pressure cooker environment of Hollywood's elite, they were the sparks waiting for the tinder. Witnesses later described Meghan's entrance as almost cinematic. She smiled for photographers, waved gracefully, and engaged briefly with fans. Yet, those closest to the action noticed the split-second micro-signals, the slight pause before speaking to one celebrity, the measured nod to another, the almost imperceptible flinch when she noticed Bradley's stare. Every gesture, every glance, carried significance, and Bradley was reading it all. The energy between them was a tightrope, a delicate balance of poise and awareness. Meghan exuded calm, yet her awareness of Bradley's presence created an invisible tension that rippled outward. It was a masterclass in control, but even masters falter under the weight of anticipation. Bradley's reaction, as we would soon see, was a response not just to Meghan's presence, but to the accumulation of years of subtle friction, the unseen micro-conflicts that had quietly shaped their interactions over time. Then came the moment that everyone would replay for weeks. Bradley Cooper's gaze sharpened. He shifted slightly, a micro-adjustment in stance that signaled readiness. Meghan, poised and confident, approached the area designated for media photographs. Cameras clicked, flashes illuminated every angle, and the tension reached a crescendo. Observers noted a small gesture, Bradley pointing subtly, almost imperceptibly at Meghan. It was a quiet precursor to what would become an unmistakable, explosive command. What's critical here is the build-up. Before the public confrontation, there were countless micro-events, barely noticeable unless you were trained to read them. The way Meghan's smile lingered just a second too long for Bradley's liking, the deliberate positioning of her entourage, the quiet murmurs of fans speculating on their past interactions. All of these elements coalesced into a perfect storm. By the time Meghan reached the photographer's designated spot, the air was thick with anticipation, tension so dense it was almost palpable. And then came the subtle signs of impending conflict. Security staff noticed Bradley's unusual posture. Event coordinators whispered to one another, sensing an unusual energy. Photographers instinctively adjusted their angles, anticipating that something might happen. Meghan, completely aware of the cameras and the stakes, maintained her composed exterior. But even the most disciplined public persona has limits, and this night would push hers to the edge. Then came the spark. According to multiple eyewitnesses, a brief interaction occurred. A glance, a word exchanged, the tiniest shift in body orientation. In isolation, it meant nothing. But in the context of years of unspoken tension, calculated appearances, and Hollywood's high-stakes environment, it was enough to ignite the fire. Bradley Cooper, long accustomed to maintaining calm and control, finally reacted. And what followed would shock everyone in attendance. Within seconds, his finger was pointed, his voice cutting through the ambient noise. "Get up. Leave." The red carpet froze. Flashbulbs erupted like staccato gunfire, attendees gasped, and Meghan's perfectly composed facade flickered for the briefest of moments. Cameras captured it all, instantly creating a viral moment that would dominate social media. But this was only the beginning. What made this confrontation so compelling and so newsworthy was the combination of history, preparation, and tension. Meghan's presence was not just a factor. It was a catalyst, the visible trigger for a deeply buried sequence of micro-conflicts and professional rivalries. Bradley's reaction, while dramatic, was rooted in years of subtle friction, interpreted slights, and the psychological weight of unspoken history. And here's the part no one saw. According to insiders, moments before Bradley issued the command, there was a private exchange between Meghan and a member of her entourage. Words were spoken, gestures made, that were caught on no camera. These minor yet significant interactions, invisible to the public eye, may have been the final spark that set the confrontation into motion. Something was said, something that made Bradley lose the restraint he had maintained for years. And what came next would not only stun the audience, but reshape the narrative of the night entirely. The red carpet, the cameras, the fans, everything seemed to hold its breath. Meghan's steps slowed, her gaze flickered toward Bradley, and the world watched as a perfectly orchestrated public persona collided with years of subtle, unseen tension. This wasn't just a Hollywood outburst. It was the culmination of history, strategy, and personal stakes that converged in a single explosive moment. And just as the public flash of drama began to unfold, insiders hint that backstage, a more private confrontation was already in motion. One that would provide context, reveal motives, and perhaps explain why what happened on the red carpet was not a simple outburst, but the inevitable climax of a carefully layered history. It was a night meant for celebration, glitz, and Hollywood smiles. But what unfolded on the red carpet at the 2025 American Cinematheque Awards would be replayed on screens worldwide for weeks. Imagine the scene. Cameras flashing relentlessly, reporters shouting questions over one another, and a line of celebrities waiting for their moment in the spotlight. The red carpet, usually a controlled, choreographed spectacle, had suddenly become the stage for something far more dramatic, far more charged. Meghan Markle had been walking with her usual poise, her gown flowing perfectly, the glimmer of her jewelry catching the lights like scattered stars. Her entourage moved seamlessly around her, guiding her along the predetermined path, ensuring she faced each camera just so. For the casual observer, it was another stunning entrance from a public figure who had mastered the art of presentation. But for those paying attention, something unusual hung in the air, a sense of impending collision, a tension that seemed to thrum beneath the surface. Bradley Cooper was watching, and anyone who knew him well would recognize the subtle signals. His posture was slightly rigid, jaw tight, fingers flexing almost imperceptibly. For a man known for his calm and measured demeanor, these were signs that something was building internally, an emotional pressure that would soon seek release. He wasn't just observing Meghan. He was processing years of subtle tensions, past encounters, and the unseen micro-conflicts that had accumulated between them over time. Then it happened. A single movement, a pointing finger, cut through the din of the cameras and applause. The direction of the gesture was unmistakable. Get up. Leave. The words, sharp and direct, were impossible to ignore. The crowd, already buzzing with anticipation and excitement, froze. Photographers captured the moment in a staccato of flashes. For a split second, it seemed as if time itself had stopped. Celebrities paused mid-step, staffers hesitated in confusion, and the audience gasped collectively. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Cameras clicked relentlessly, catching every nuance. Meghan's subtle flinch, the momentary falter in her stride, the slight tightening of her lips that betrayed the flicker of surprise and irritation. Bradley's stance was firm, unwavering, the intensity of his gaze communicating a controlled fury that seemed almost surreal in the context of a formal red carpet. In a world accustomed to polished appearances and rehearsed gestures, this was raw, human emotion laid bare. Social media erupted almost instantly. Clips of the incident circulated within minutes, accompanied by commentary ranging from disbelief to outrage. Fans debated the motivations, dissected the body language, and speculated on the history between the two figures. Trending hashtags multiplied, memes proliferated, and the incident became a cultural moment before the night had even concluded. Yet, the public only saw the surface, the layers beneath. The history, the subtle provocations, the backstage whispers, were hidden from view, waiting to be explored. The energy in the room was electric, almost dangerous. The red carpet, normally a corridor of controlled spectacle, now felt like a live wire. Security staff subtly shifted positions, unsure whether intervention was necessary or whether this was a moment to observe silently. Event coordinators whispered to one another, sensing the anomaly but powerless to stop it without causing a larger scene. Meanwhile, Meghan maintained her composure, outwardly calm but internally processing the sudden, unprecedented confrontation. And it wasn't just the immediate visual of the pointing finger and the command. It was the context, the layers of unspoken history that made this moment so explosive. Bradley Cooper's gesture wasn't a simple outburst. It was the eruption of accumulated friction, professional judgments, and personal stakes that had been building for years. Meghan's presence, calculated, poised, and media-savvy, became the catalyst that ignited the reaction, turning what could have been a minor social tension into a full-blown spectacle. Witnesses later described the surreal atmosphere. Celebrities standing nearby reportedly exchanged glances of shock, some whispering under their breath, others frozen mid-step as they tried to process the scene unfolding before them. Journalists scrambled to capture quotes. Cameras adjusted angles rapidly, and the collective energy of the room shifted from celebratory excitement to astonished tension. Meghan's reaction, while subtle, was telling. She paused briefly, micro-expressions betraying the brief flicker of disbelief and irritation before she recomposed herself. It was a masterclass in poise, yet even the most disciplined public persona has limits. The juxtaposition of composure and surprise created a tension that the cameras captured in vivid detail. Every blink, every subtle shift in posture, was a data point for social media analysts, entertainment journalists, and fans worldwide. Bradley, by contrast, held his ground with unwavering intensity. His finger remained pointed, his gaze locked, his voice carrying an authority that demanded attention. There was no room for ambiguity, no escape from the moment's raw clarity. In a world where Hollywood appearances are often choreographed, rehearsed, and polished, this was unfiltered, real, and explosive. The incident was not just visual drama, it was narrative gold. Analysts and commentators later pointed out the psychological complexity, a collision of years of subtle tension, amplified by the pressures of public performance and media scrutiny. What might have been a brief flicker of annoyance became a full-blown spectacle because of the historical context, the accumulation of unspoken grievances, and the high stakes of the red carpet environment. And yet, there's more. While the public witnessed the immediate spectacle, insiders reveal that there was far more occurring behind the scenes. Private whispers, body language cues, and micro-interactions moments before the confrontation may have triggered the explosion. Perhaps a word, a gesture, or a subtle maneuver in Meghan's entourage set Bradley over the edge. The red carpet moment, dramatic as it was, may have been the inevitable result of these hidden dynamics. Audience reactions mirrored the chaos backstage. Fans recorded every angle, commentators provided instant analysis, and memes and reaction videos proliferated almost immediately. The explosion of attention transformed a single, fleeting moment into a defining cultural event. Everyone was talking, everyone had an opinion, and the story began to ripple outward, reaching beyond Hollywood into mainstream media, social networks, and global conversation. And still, the night wasn't over. This explosive red carpet moment was only the beginning. The spark that would ignite subsequent events, backstage confrontations, and private discussions that would further complicate the narrative. What seemed like a single, isolated event was in fact a climax in a longer story, a story layered with history, rivalry, and the invisible forces of public perception and personal stakes. But here's the critical point. According to multiple sources, what the cameras captured was not the entirety of the incident. Moments immediately following the public outburst revealed private confrontations, whispered conversations, and reactions from Meghan's team that would add depth, complexity, and shock to the story. These behind-the-scenes dynamics, unseen by the public, may have changed everything about how this moment was perceived and what would happen next. What happened on the red carpet that night was more than an angry outburst. It was the convergence of Hollywood ambition, personal history, and the pressures of public perception. And as the cameras continued to flash, Meghan's composed exterior began to meet the reality of a confrontation that would define not only that night, but potentially her public image for years to come. The question now becomes, what exactly was said in those moments after Bradley's command? How did Meghan respond when the spotlight was no longer just literal, but metaphorical? Shining on every subtle emotion, every strategic decision, every calculated move? The answers lie not on the red carpet, but in the corridors, backrooms, and whispered exchanges that no camera captured. What the cameras captured on the red carpet was explosive, yes, but it was only a fraction of the story. The true drama, insiders say, unfolded behind the scenes, away from the flashing lenses and live broadcasts. In these hidden corners, backstage hallways, private lounges, and secluded prep rooms, tensions between Bradley Cooper and Meghan Markle simmered in ways that the public never saw, setting the stage for the confrontation that would soon shock Hollywood. Imagine the scene backstage just before Meghan's grand entrance. The air was thick with anticipation. Assistants hurriedly adjusted gowns and tuxedos, stylists checked hair and makeup one last time, and PR teams whispered instructions into earpieces. The venue's staff moved like clockwork, maintaining order amidst the controlled chaos. But amid the surface-level precision, the energy was electric in an entirely different way. Insiders describe it as a mix of excitement, anxiety, and tension so tangible that it almost seemed to hum through the air. Bradley Cooper had arrived early, meticulously observing the flow of the red carpet, the positioning of key players, and the movement of camera crews. His eyes weren't just on the attendees. They were on Meghan. Sources suggest that he was aware of her approach minutes before anyone else, studying her entourage, noting how they navigated the maze of flashing cameras. His attention to detail, usually celebrated as professionalism, now took on an undertone of scrutiny, an almost predatory awareness that something significant was brewing. Meanwhile, Meghan Markle's team was equally strategic. Assistants and advisors orchestrated her path carefully, ensuring she appeared composed, confident, and media-ready. Every handshake, every nod, every subtle angle toward a camera was meticulously managed. Yet, despite the careful choreography, Meghan could sense Bradley's attention. And in the world of Hollywood optics, being noticed in such a deliberate manner is never neutral. It carries weight, meaning, and often, threat. What made the backstage tension so volatile was not just the personalities involved, but the history, the cumulative friction that had built over years of indirect interactions. Bradley, according to insiders, had been quietly critical of Meghan's approach to public appearances, perceiving it as overly calculated and sometimes manipulative. Meghan, aware of the scrutiny, maintained a poised exterior, but she, too, carried her own strategic awareness. Anticipating reactions, controlling narratives, and positioning herself advantageously. Backstage whispers reveal that a brief exchange occurred just moments before Meghan stepped onto the red carpet. Sources, speaking anonymously, claim that one of Meghan's aides said something, perhaps a casual comment, perhaps a subtle jibe, about Bradley's behavior earlier that evening. Whatever the words were, they reached Bradley's ears, and the reaction was immediate, visceral, and unmistakable. It wasn't just irritation, it was the culmination of months, perhaps years, of microtensions. And in that instant, all of the carefully controlled Hollywood masks cracked. Insiders also described the subtle positioning and body language that contributed to the escalating tension. Bradley reportedly adjusted his stance, aligning himself with a subtle authority, while Meghan's entourage subtly shifted, guiding her through the crowd and redirecting attention. Every movement was loaded with meaning, even if the public couldn't interpret it. In the pressure cooker environment backstage, these micro-interactions amplified rapidly, setting the stage for the explosive confrontation that would unfold seconds later. Security personnel and event coordinators also sensed the tension. While they couldn't intervene directly without creating a spectacle, they noticed the unspoken cues. Bradley's fixed gaze, Meghan's slight hesitation, the brief but noticeable flinch when their paths almost crossed. These professionals, trained to read subtle behavioral cues, reportedly exchanged looks of concern. Even in the midst of glitz and glamour, the underlying dynamics hinted that something was about to go horribly public. Then there was the whispered speculation from other celebrities. In the moments before Meghan's official entrance, a few high-profile attendees reportedly exchanged hushed comments. "Did you see that look he just gave her? Something's going to happen. This isn't going to end quietly." While gossip is commonplace at such events, these particular observations were prescient, suggesting that the tension had been noticed by more than just the principals involved. The backstage environment, usually a place of controlled professionalism, had become a powder keg. Some insiders even hint at more calculated provocations. According to anonymous sources, Meghan's team had discussed strategies for maximizing media impact that evening. While these plans may have been purely tactical, they inadvertently contributed to the escalating friction. Bradley, aware of such maneuvers, interpreted them not merely as PR strategies, but as personal challenges, as if the very choreography of Meghan's entrance was a deliberate provocation. And in a moment of human emotion, combined with the high stakes of the red carpet, the spark ignited. What makes this story so fascinating and so instructive is the layering of psychological pressure. On one hand, you have Bradley Cooper, calm yet precise, navigating his own expectations and history of perceived slights. On the other hand, Meghan Markle, trained in public poise, navigating a media landscape that scrutinizes every micro-moment. Backstage, these forces collided in a charged atmosphere where even a minor gesture could escalate into something monumental. The backstage chaos continued even as Meghan advanced toward the red carpet. Assistants whispered instructions, stylists adjusted gowns, and PR teams monitored camera angles. Every small detail mattered. A slight delay in movement, a glance in the wrong direction, or a subtle change in body orientation could be misinterpreted. And it was precisely in this crucible of tension that Bradley's internal pressure reached its breaking point. Sources claim that just before the public outburst, there was a brief, private confrontation. A few exchanged words, voices low, gestures subtle but meaningful. No cameras captured it. The public never saw it. But for those in the immediate vicinity, the tension was palpable, almost suffocating. By the time Meghan stepped onto the red carpet, the moment had already been set. The spark was waiting for ignition. And then, as we know, it erupted. Bradley Cooper's command, sharp, clear, and impossible to ignore, was the public manifestation of a deeply buried tension that had been building backstage. The red carpet became the stage for a human drama that had been simmering in the shadows. What the world saw was the result of countless micro-interactions, subtle provocations, and the invisible pressures of public and personal history. But here's the thing no one saw. Backstage, after the command was issued, the tension didn't dissipate. Meghan's team reportedly scrambled to recalibrate, whispering instructions, adjusting positions, and attempting to manage a narrative that was rapidly spiraling. Bradley, meanwhile, remained poised but internally charged, his every movement signaling that this confrontation was far from over. The drama had only just begun, and the fallout, insiders say, would reach far beyond the confines of the awards venue. The backstage environment, hidden from the public eye, was the crucible in which this explosive moment had been forged. Every glance, every whispered word, every microgesture contributed to the inevitability of what occurred on the red carpet. And what came next, what unfolded in the moments immediately following the public confrontation, would reveal even more layers, more secrets, and more shocking insights into both Meghan Markle and Bradley Cooper. Some moments in Hollywood are spontaneous. Others are calculated, carefully choreographed, and strategically executed. The confrontation between Bradley Cooper and Meghan Markle at the 2025 American Cinematheque Awards has left many asking the same question. Was this truly an impulsive eruption, or was it the culmination of a meticulously planned strategy? Consider Meghan Markle's history in Hollywood. From her early days on Suits to her transition into high-profile philanthropic and public endeavors, she has been deliberate in crafting her public persona. Every smile, gesture, and public statement is measured to achieve a specific effect. Publicity isn't left to chance, it is engineered. And in a world where media perception is power, control of narrative is critical. For Meghan, every appearance is a chess move, calculated to maintain attention, influence, and leverage. So when she arrived at the American Cinematheque Awards, her presence wasn't just glamorous, it was strategic. Sources familiar with the event reveal that her team had discussed her approach down to the smallest detail. The timing of her entrance, the positioning relative to other celebrities, even the specific photographers she would acknowledge. The goal, they claim, was not merely to be seen, but to command attention in a way that reinforced her image as poised, confident, and influential. But could that strategy have inadvertently provoked Bradley Cooper? According to multiple insiders, the answer is yes. Bradley, aware of Meghan's calculated presence, reportedly interpreted her moves as deliberate and possibly confrontational. Her measured gestures, her precise positioning, and the timing of her interactions with other celebrities may have been perceived as a challenge to the decorum and hierarchy he values in professional settings. In other words, what the public saw as Meghan asserting herself could have been interpreted by Bradley as a subtle provocation. There's also the question of timing. Some insiders suggest that Meghan's team was aware of Bradley's role in the event, his standing with Hollywood insiders, and his meticulous attention to detail. By entering the red carpet with precise timing, Meghan may have sought to control the optics of the night, ensuring that her interactions with Bradley were highly visible. Was this calculated to provoke a reaction? Possibly, but the public narrative presents it as an impulsive outburst. And yet, strategy is rarely obvious. To casual observers, Meghan's calm demeanor and polished entrance suggested total control. But in the shadows, behind the lens of every photographer, and within earshot of a few staffers, the tension was tangible. Strategic moves often appear natural in execution, masking the intense planning behind them. To Bradley, who is known for his attention to nuance and personal standards, even a subtle gesture could become amplified into significance. Some experts argue that Meghan's strategy may have extended beyond mere red carpet choreography. Her team, well-versed in media manipulation and narrative management, likely anticipated that any tension would be captured, dissected, and broadcast across social platforms. By engineering an entrance that intersected with Bradley's position, Meghan may have intended to create a moment that would dominate media coverage, a moment that, intentionally or not, became a viral spectacle. And then there's the matter of human psychology. Strategic planning can only go so far. Human emotion, ego, and pride play unpredictable roles. Even the most calculated moves can ignite unexpected reactions, particularly when past tensions exist. The history between Bradley and Meghan, built over years of micro-conflicts and subtle judgments, created a pressure cooker environment. All it took was a spark, the briefest glance, the tiniest gesture, to turn planning into chaos. Reports suggest that backstage, just minutes before Meghan's public entrance, her team discussed precisely how she would navigate Bradley's presence. They were aware of the stakes. Any misstep could lead to embarrassment, public scrutiny, or worse. Yet, strategy alone could not account for the explosion that occurred when Bradley finally lost composure. This indicates that while planning played a role, it collided with unpredictable human dynamics, producing the spectacle captured on camera. Consider the optics. Meghan's calculated presence, her timing, and her interaction with other celebrities created a visible contrast. Bradley's poised, observant demeanor contrasted sharply with her strategic performance. In such moments, narrative perception matters as much as reality. What the cameras captured, the pointing finger, the command, the public humiliation, was only one interpretation of events. Behind the scenes, the interplay of strategy, history, and psychology shaped every movement. Insiders also suggest a deeper layer. Meghan's strategy may have been about perception as much as action. By maintaining composure during the initial moments of confrontation, she demonstrated control over her public image, reinforcing her brand of poise under pressure. Even as Bradley's anger erupted, Meghan's calm, measured response, or at least her maintained composure, allowed her to manage the narrative. To the public, she appeared resilient. To Hollywood insiders, she was strategically sophisticated. Yet, strategy has limits. While Meghan's planning may have influenced the moment, it could not fully control human reaction. Bradley's outburst, intense and public, disrupted the carefully orchestrated optics. What she may have intended as a subtle display of poise and authority became, in effect, a stage for drama, captured, amplified, and spread across media channels within minutes. The intersection of planning and unpredictability created the explosive moment that would define the evening. Here's the twist. Sources suggest that even after the public outburst, Meghan may have anticipated potential fallout. Her team reportedly had contingencies in place, including prepared statements, media talking points, and social media responses. This indicates that while the confrontation itself may have been unplanned in terms of exact timing, the broader strategy, anticipating and controlling the narrative, was likely part of a calculated approach. In other words, what seemed impulsive to millions of viewers may have been layered with deliberate foresight. Meghan's calm response, her ability to navigate the immediate chaos, and the strategic framing of the incident all suggest a mind attuned to controlling public perception. This raises the ultimate question. Was the red carpet confrontation a spontaneous emotional eruption, or a moment engineered for maximum visibility, calculated to leave an indelible mark on Hollywood's narrative landscape? And what's even more compelling is what happened immediately after the public spectacle. Backstage, whispered discussions, tense glances, and hurried conversations hinted at further maneuvering. Meghan's strategy, whether conscious or instinctive, extended beyond the public eye. Every decision, every step, every subtle gesture was part of a complex interplay between planning, improvisation, and psychological awareness. As the night progressed, the implications of Meghan's strategic approach became clearer. Observers began analyzing every micro-movement, every exchange with Bradley, every interaction with other celebrities. Social media theorists and entertainment analysts dissected the sequence of events, speculating about intent, motive, and consequence. And while the public saw only the tip of the iceberg, the red carpet confrontation